Hello, Rockstar Movie Recapped. I bring to you 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, which was released on February 19, 2016, and was directed by Michael Bay. Spoilers ahead, please subscribe before you continue. The opening text states that there were over 200 American outposts in Libya until 2012. Following the 2011 civil war, the deposition and execution of dictator Muammar Gaddafi, Benghazi became one of the most violent places in the world, forcing the United States to pull their outposts out of there, all except for one called the Annex, which protected by a team of CIA contractors, the Global Response Staff, GRS. Jack Silva, John Krasinski, arrives in Benghazi and is picked up by his best friend/fellow contractor Tyrone "Roan" Woods, James Badge Dale. The two are stopped in the streets by a group of militants. Roan contacts their chief, David Costabile, to bring in the rest of the team for help, but the chief refuses. The militant leader orders the two to pull over their vehicle for inspection. Jack and Roan pull out their guns for defense, and Roan tells the leader that there is a drone circling them and will get him and his family if they do anything to him and Jack. The two are allowed to leave. At the CIA safe house, called the Annex, Roan confronts the chief over not letting the team go in. The chief reminds Roan not to engage civilians and avoid conflict with the militants. Jack meets the rest of the team. Jack goes on a brief task with two undercover CIA officers. The rest of GRS is nearby for protection. Roan spots a couple of suspicious men and gets out of the car, compromising his position. Jack is alerted and gets Sona and Britt out of there. The team is brought to the special mission compound where the US ambassador to Libya is staying. They meet other guards, and become familiar with the location. On the morning of September 11, 2012, Stevens notices some dubious men around the compound taking pictures, prompting him to notify his security detail. Meanwhile, at the Annex, the team contacts their families. Jack talks to his wife Becky, Ren Schmidt, and their daughters. One of the girls spills the beans to Jack that Becky is pregnant with their third child. That night, a large team of militants stormed the compound and attacked as the Libyan guards on the outside surrendered. The militants fire off shots and invade the compound as Wickland takes Stevens and Sean Smith into the panic room. Knowing they can't break in there, the militants begin pouring diesel fuel all over the floor to burn the men out. The fire is lit, bringing heavy smoke into the panic room. Wickland makes it out but ends up losing Stevens and Smith. The men at the Annex are informed of the attack and want to head out to help, but the chief refuses to send them out for fear that the Annex will be defenseless. The team disregards their orders and heads over to Special Mission. The team heads back to the Annex but is pursued by the militants with RPGs and AKs. The men fire back against the militants. Fearing retaliation, the CIA officers attempt to contact the nearest airbases to aid in a strike against the militants. They are able to contact Glenn "Bub" Doherty, Toby Stevens, a GRS officer in Tripoli that rounds up his own team and heads down to Benghazi to help. More militants headed toward the Annex and continue their attack against the Americans. The team fires back and continues to defend the compound, despite coming under heavy fire. The militants fall back and try to regroup, as does the team. The Annex is contacted and told that more help is on the way. Soon, the militants return and launch a mortar strike against the Annex. Roan gets hit and is killed, as is Glenn moments later. Oz is wounded and has his left arm mangled. Jack finds Roan's body and weeps for his best friend. As dawn arrives, the team is left vulnerable. A large convoy of vehicles heads toward the Annex. Tonto has his gun aimed at a couple of men from the vehicles, but he gets a signal from them that they are there to help the team. Tonto cries with relief. These men from the Libyan army gather the Americans and bring them to an airfield. The bodies of Stevens, Smith, Roan, and Glenn are recovered and taken. The chief chooses not to get on the plane back home until Jack confronts him and orders him to, after reminding him he is partially responsible for some of the lives lost in the attack. Before departing, Jack calls Becky to let her know he is okay. He breaks down crying when he tells her that Roan didn't make it. As the plane arrives, Jack uncovers Roan's body to look at him one last time. The ending text states that 28 Americans were rescued that day. Libya was declared a failed state and is now a stronghold for ISIS. 10 days after the attack, thousands of Libyan civilians gathered to mourn Ambassador Stevens. The chief and surviving members of GRS received medals in a private ceremony, and the men subsequently retired to be with their families. The final shot is of 2 stars on the wall of the CIA HQ for Roan and Glenn. The end. Thank you for watching. If you like what you just watched, please make sure to subscribe and tell someone about Rockstar Movie Recapped. Subscribe, watch, like, and comment.